today here in Bellevue, Nebraska. Larry Burke. Larry is the Assistant City Administrator for Bellevue. So Larry, welcome to EV World.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure to be able to talk to somebody a couple of miles from where I live, because in the past I either have to travel 1,000 miles to one coast or the other, or talk to somebody via Skype on the other side of the planet. So to be able to actually have somebody that I can drive to in 10 minutes time that's operating electric cars is very cool for me. So
great.
It's great to see. So let's start off first of all by talking about the city of Bellevue. Just, for people, obviously I'm familiar with it because I live here, but for people that we have an audience literally around the planet. So tell me a little bit about Bellevue.
Well, Bellevue is just south of Omaha. It's 51,000 people is the 2012 census, approximately 51,000. But that doesn't include base personnel. So if you take in consideration the population of the unincorporated areas around Bellevue and the base, we're closer to 80. So if you take, it's a pretty decent sized community, and
so that makes us makes you about what, the fourth largest?
We are the third largest city
in Omaha.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
in Nebraska.
Right. So in Nebraska. So for people who aren't familiar with the base, maybe just give us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Offutt Air Force Base, Bill. I know you're. Yeah. Sorry. Offutt Air Force Base.
Right. And
home of the Fighting 55th.
Fighting 55th.
That's
okay.
Right.
Which is basically a aerial sort of recon.
They provide assistance to just about every aspect of the Air Force.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Very good. So so we've got almost spitting distance from here.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the gates to Offutt Air Base, which of course for many, many years during the Cold War era was the home of the Strategic Air Command.
It still is.
And so we've got, it's sort of renamed itself, or is it still
Stratcom is still,
okay.
Oh, well, it's Stratcom now.
Stratcom, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, very good. So we've got a city here of about 80,000 people. The reason, of course, I'm here is because I saw a news report featuring you on one of the local TV stations talking about the 2 Nissan LEAF electric cars that the city has acquired. So I'd like to maybe have us sort of give us a sense of the genesis of how that decision came about, because we don't typically think of, when I think of electric cars, it's sort of been, as I've said before, it's always sort of a coastal thing, right? And now that we, have cities actually starting to employment here in the heartland of America, I'm really curious as to how that decision came about.
Well, as a member of the Nebraska City County Managers Association, I was aware of some granting opportunities that they were working on as an organization. And they applied, or we had a grant administrator apply for a grant on behalf of the Nebraska City County Managers Association, and we applied to the Nebraska Environmental Trust.
Okay.
And once we found out that we received the grant, we realized at that point that we were not able to execute some of the activities as an organization. We had not given ourselves the authority to do some of the things like take on a lease agreement or sign a contract or things of that nature. Right. So from that group, we formed the Nebraska Community Energy Alliance, NCEA.
Okay.
And there are 8 founding communities. They are Bellevue, Central City, Gothenburg, Holdridge, Lexington, Nebraska City, South Sioux City, and Wayne. So this is much bigger than just Bellevue. So I'm giving you some other locations you can, over time.
Right. So several of those, of course, are right along the Interstate 80 corridor that has millions of people pass by or pass through them, Gothenburg and Holdridge and a little south, but others of them are sort of in the southeast part of the state, and Wayne and the they'd be northeast part of the state and southeast part. So that's interesting. So we've got 8 did you say?
Yes. 8
communities that applied or
well, there are more now.
Okay.
There are member organizations and communities that have been added. Lincoln, Mappa, which is the Metropolitan
Right.
Area Planning Association,
Right,
for
right.
your listeners.
Right.
And I believe the Office of Sustainability at the University of Nebraska, Omaha.
Okay, that'd be Pat Wheeler
And
company, so-
Rick Yoder, I
Right,
believe.
Rick Yoder, yeah.
And there are a few others.
Right.
So it's getting to the point where it's getting hard to keep up
Right.
with the folks that are being added to the NCEA.
Okay, so what is sort of the mission then? Obviously, sustainable energy thing. So sort of give us a sense of what the mission is and how does that then tie into, acquiring electric cars?
Well, the mission for the group was to expand that network of charging stations.
Okay.
So in addition to the cars, we also received grant funds to receive charging stations.
Oh, excellent, okay.
So those charging stations are strategically placed wherever, well, I don't know if it's strategically or by happenstance, but those folks who wanted to participate in the grant received the charging station
Okay.
and applied for a charging station. So now we have a larger network in the state of Nebraska for charging stations that users can use.
Right.
In addition to that, we're also reaping the benefits of having the electric vehicles and increasing our efficiency. For example, for Bellevue, most of our trips are within the metropolitan community area.
Right.
So we can use these vehicles for all day in the range that we drive.
Right.
More importantly, part of the grant required us to participate in a research project through the University of Nebraska. And that research will analyze the use
Okay.
of the charge stations and maybe the breadth of who is using them, how often someone is using them,
Right.
that type of information.
Okay, so as part of this, these communities are getting at least one charger, I assume, or however.
I believe, yeah, most of them are. Yeah,
Right.
some of them also received funding for CNG.
Okay, so it's compressed natural gas. Are any of them looking at doing what Bellevue did and acquiring electric cars
Yes.
while they're at it? Okay,
Yes. All of the communities that I mentioned, the 8, are looking at an electric vehicle.
okay,
If I'm not mistaken, Nebraska City may be CNG, but
okay,
all of them are looking at them. Whether or not they've acquired them yet is another story.
right,
I do know that they all are in the process of doing that. One of the things I'm proud of is that I was working with a Woodhouse Nissan here in Bellevue.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And we were working through all the intricate details of how do we get this agreement for the electric vehicles processed, so one, we can capture the rebates, and two, we can make it easier for everyone else when they contact their dealer. Well, most of them are contacting Woodhouse and Bellevue for their cars as well.
Okay,
So it's
right.
good for Bellevue here at Woodhouse and Bellevue. So,
right.
and I do know that some of them had contacted the sales agent at Woodhouse and Bellevue.
So pretty much it sounds to me that most of these companies are looking at, or cities, communities, and organizations are looking at vehicles like the Nissan LEAF,
Right.
as opposed to going over to the other, the local Chevrolet dealer
Well-
and getting a Volt, or,
Well, the Volt is a little bit more expensive.
okay,
And so, we also bid the project out,
okay,
and most everyone bid the LEAF. I believe there were 2 bids, and we bid the LEAF.
okay.
So I believe the difference is approximately $10,000.
Yeah, that would be roughly right.
Yeah. And so, we're in this for efficiency, and for Bellevue, it's something we wanted to try.
So you've had the vehicles, how long was the process of actually applying and taking delivery and all that type of thing?
Well, we were first contacted by the grant administrator, Ann McCollister.
Okay,
I believe you may know Ann.
Yes, yeah, I know her
And she
well.
contacted us right after I started in 2012 with this grant opportunity.
okay,
At that time, there was not a lot of information, so we didn't participate at that time. Neither did NCEA. However, Ann is very persistent,
Right,
and
yep.
she worked with us and she educated us, and we went ahead and applied at that time. And I believe in first part of 2013 we got an application in. And then we found out later in the year, maybe the first part of 2014, that we received the award. The 8 communities received the award, and I believe it was for over $400,000.
Okay.
Collectively.
All right.
Then there were the issues with the organizational authority, so we created the NCEA.
Okay.
And then we started the process of acquiring ChargePoint charge stations and going through the process of trying to find a way where we could capture the rebates, and that was through a one-pay lease.
Okay.
So Nissan was very cooperative with Nissan of Bellevue, and we were able to capture the rebate as part of our cost share in the grant.
Okay, that's cool. So typically, if you're leasing a vehicle, leasing a LEAF, that $7,500 federal tax credit ends up essentially staying with the dealership. In this case, then you were able, through the organization then and how the payment mechanism was done, to be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, the give back was we had to also pay taxes on that first month of the
Right.
It starts to get very complicated.
Right, I can imagine.
But we figured it out, and at the time we were getting an $88,750 rebate.
Okay.
So, and that rebate changes from month to month. So once we found out it was $87.50, we were really working very hard to get it done before the end of October.
Right. Because as I understand it, once Nissan gets to a certain level, and I think the number was 500,000 vehicles or something like that, and they're about halfway there. At least worldwide. In the U.S., I think they're around 150,000, so they got a little ways to go yet.
Yeah.
So.
This is me speculating here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no,
we were in October, and not a lot of people are looking for electric vehicles in the wintertime.
Exactly.
So maybe the rebate went up. That
Right.
that's the geographer in me coming out. Weather affects everything.
Yeah,
So.
exactly, especially in car dealerships.
Right.
Yep, exactly. So these vehicles are leased then, I gather?
It's a one-pay lease, so we paid some money up front,
Right.
and then after 30 to 60 days, there should be a final payment.
Okay.
It'll take a while for that to get processed at Nissan,
Okay.
and then we'll get the title to it.
Okay. So then, in essence, when you get the title, then you effectively own the vehicles. You're not taking them for like 36 months and then turning the vehicle back in, though.